In motion is Sewell. Goff to throw. Wants to throw it to Sewell. He caught it. Boy, Sewell with a first down. Oh, yes. The big man dives down to the 31-yard line. Oh, that is beautiful.
Welcome to the Twentyman the Huddle podcast. It is week 15 in the NFL, and that's right. It is the stretch run time. The Detroit Lions and New York Jets facing off at MetLife in New York, actually New Jersey, on Sunday. And look, both teams are in the hunt. Lions in the NFC, the Jets in the AFC. So it's a huge game. And when I look at this matchup, I look at really its strength on strength. And when you look at the Lions offense, 5th in points, 4th in total defense, 11th running the football, 7th throwing the football, and the numbers are almost similar on the opposite side with that Jets defense. I mean, 6th in points allowed, 3rd in total defense, 4th against the pass, 13th against the run. There might be some opportunities there for Swift and Jackson and Williams in the run game. We talked to offensive coordinator Ben Johnson on Thursday, and he said, that is one area I think we need to be a little bit more consistent moving forward. Look, the Lions have been moving the ball and they've been scoring. They didn't even punt against Jacksonville, but 4 of their last 6 games they have averaged less than 4 yards per carry. We didn't really see that a whole lot early in the season. So maybe one area, the Jets are number 4 in the league against the pass. I think they're number 4 in sacks. They've got 39. I think to slow that rush down, to maybe soften that coverage just a little bit, I think the Lions can stand to be a little bit more consistent, running the football, maybe get a couple of those explosive plays we saw a lot of earlier in the season, but we haven't seen a lot of lately. I think one thing that will help that is certainly the health up front. It's been terrific to see Evan Brown back this week. We'll see what his status is on Friday on the injury report and the game designations. But to have Decker and Jonah Jackson and Frank Ragnow and Evan Brown and Penei Sewell against that front, they run that kind of wide 9, 4 down wide 9, different kind of front. Not a lot of teams run it. So, to have those 5 guys, your 5 starters, I think is huge for this team and for the run game, which I mentioned. There were only 2 guys that were missing out of practice to start the week due to injury. Coyote Osika, the guard, and Derek Barnes. Everyone else was healthy. I didn't notice Aiden Hutchinson out at practice on Thursday. But obviously, we'll get an update on him. I know, some illnesses have been working their way around still. The Lions are trying to get by that, but we'll see what his status is. But just in terms of overall health, I mean, for Week 15 of the NFL, this Lions team is in great shape heading down the stretch run here. I think maybe 2 other things just to note. Romeo Okwara was back last week. I think he played 25 snaps, which was more than I anticipated. We're going to see that to continue to ramp up. So, having James Houston, Aiden Hutchinson, Romeo Okwara, their guys on the edge, I think is big in this matchup. And then, Jameson Williams. It was obviously terrific to see the 41-yard reception by him, his first in the NFL. He went from 8 snaps against Jacksonville to 14 last week. I would expect that to continue to go up depending on the game plan. I talked to Jared Goff on Wednesday. He said he's looking good. He's getting way more comfortable, and I'm getting way more comfortable with him. So that's obviously a terrific sign moving forward. And just Jared overall has been playing so good, and we're going to have Jared on the podcast today. He's been, I think, getting all his weapons back has been really huge for him. I think you look at when this team started playing good football, it really it corresponded with DJ Chark being back, Amon-Ra St. Brown, being the healthiest he's been. DeAndre Swift finally getting over those ankle and shoulder injuries, and Josh Reynolds being healthy. He finally has his full complement of weapons. He's got his entire offensive line back, both his running backs, and really all 3-4 running backs when you add Reynolds and Jackson into the mix too. It's just he's got to be looking around the league and seeing some of these injuries to teams this late into the season, and it was the opposite for Detroit. They dealt with it early, and now they're getting healthy now at the right time. And so I think that's really coincided with this stretch of 5 wins in their last 6. So look, we'll see Sunday if the Lions can keep it going. Like I said, I got Jared Goff today. today. I've got Connor Rogers joining me. He does a great job covering the Jets for the New York market. I got Mike O'Hara breaking down the BetMGM key matchups. So stick with me. We've got a big show. Welcome back to the Twentyman the Huddle podcast presented by Microsoft, and I am very happy to be joined by Connor Rogers. He does a terrific job covering the Jets in New York. He's got his hands in kind of a little bit of everything. A really popular podcast, works for SNY TV in New York, a PFF contributor, NBC Sports. Connor, you've got it all covered there, my man. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Obviously, a much anticipated week, right? I think when we both looked at this one over the summer, you never knew how this would go for each team, and both of them have started to surpass expectations a little bit. So really exciting.
Yeah, certainly. That was the biggest thing for, at least for Detroit. I don't know how you guys felt in New York, but, after a 3-win season in Dan Campbell's debut in 2021, you were just like, okay, let's double those wins. Let's at least get to 6. Let's be part of the conversation in December. Let's be playing some meaningful football and be in the graphic. I'm just curious, when you guys settled into the start of this season, kind of what was the expectations for this Jets team, and have they matched that, exceeded it, a little bit under? Kind of where are you guys at in New York with your football team?
I think they've exceeded them. I think when you open the season with a win total at 5.5 and you surpass that mark pretty early, now that's not the end goal, right? Is to overachieve from how Vegas views you. But I think what the Jets needed to see was young player development, games that matter beyond Thanksgiving, which they absolutely do. The Jets needed 3 of these next 4, and they're probably in the playoffs. And of course, a big step from the integral parts of the franchise. That is the coaching staff. They've taken those steps. A lot of Joe Douglas's draft picks, they've taken those steps. The one that they have not gotten is, of course, Zach Wilson, who was benched for Mike White, who continues to overachieve expectations as a former third-string quarterback, former practice squad quarterback. So you look at this Jets team, and then one last one is Quinnen Williams turning into a superstar, something that he had not done the first couple of years after being a top 10 pick, and now he looks like that guy. So that's how they got here. That's how they're in the playoff hunt. It's how they have one of the better young defenses in the NFL. They just need everything else to catch up, and that's where they stand right now.
Well, since you mentioned them, let's talk about them. Quinnen Williams, obviously their best defensive player, leads them in sacks, quarterbacks, pressures, tackles for loss. I mean, you mentioned it. I consider him right there with maybe Chris Jones and Aaron Donald as the best interior guys in football. I know he's been dealing with a calf injury. Any update? I know Robert Saleh earlier in the week said 50-50. Is that kind of still where it's at? Wait and see with him. And then obviously Mike White dealing with the rib injury. Kind of, can you update us where those guys are and what their what their availability could be for Sunday?
Yeah, truly 50-50 on Quinnen. Calf injuries are very, very tricky. It's not something that you just, throw a brace on, or even, in my opinion, pain management. You never know which way they can go. And apparently something that had popped up in summer with Quinnen, he recovered. He dominated for the first couple months of the season. And then this popped up in Buffalo again. And now you're looking at it, obviously, it's a massive game for both teams. I mean, both of these teams are trying to win out and make the playoffs. The Lions have a really, really good offense where Quinnen Williams not being on the field is a massive difference maker, both against the run and against the pass. So I think he will do everything possible to play. And here's the thing, even if he is active, they will probably really rotate him more than we've ever seen. They already do that. He plays about 60, 70, 75% of the snaps. I think the rotation would put him down to 40 to 50% of the snaps if he can even go. So you're going to see a limited Quinnen Williams if you see one at all. Mike White is really interesting because that feels like pain management. And I don't think any of us can scoff at that with the hits that he took, but the pain he's willing to play through. So it's one of those situations. Can you put a little bit more padding on the ribs, and more importantly, protect him against the Lions front seven that I've noticed over the last month has really, really come together? That's something where, and activating making Zach Wilson the number 2 kind of tells you that the Jets know there's a chance Mike White, I think he'll be ready to go for the game, but can he make it through the game? We know Joe Flacco is just not effective at all anymore. Zach Wilson's had his struggles, but the Jets also won 5 of their 7 games with Zach Wilson under center. So he's the number 2. Probably tells you about Mike White's pain tolerance, but ultimately it feels like White is trending to start in this one.
Boy, Connor, when I looked at a couple of those hits that he took, I mean, that second one, he was folded like a pretzel almost. I mean, he's a pretty tough young man to stand in there, deliver that football, take that hit. If it does come to pain management, there's just the sense that you get from him. He seems, from the outside looking in, like he's a pretty tough character.
He really is. I mean, I think his quote was they'd have to peel him off the field. So this has nothing to do with the amount of pain he's in or desire. This is just that the doctors clear him. If he's cleared by the doctors to play, I don't see any scenario that he's willing to come off the field unless he's forced to. Now, does it change what the Jets do offensively, right? With White, they've been able to just really carve up the intermediate areas of the field, both outside the hashes and in between the numbers. And that was something that they struggled to do with Zach Wilson under center. But White hangs in there. He keeps his eyes up when the pressure is on. He's willing to take a hit and throw the ball down the field to Elijah Moore, to Garrett Wilson, really all the way around the field. So can you live constantly that way and continue to take those hits? This week, I really don't think so. I think you have to be very conscious of that, where maybe you see more screens. I'm not going to sit here and say the Jets are going to fire up the run. Now, the Jets have been a good run team this year, but the Lions have been one of the better run defenses in the NFL over the last month. So I don't think you just sit on the ball and run the ball and try to do something that could be ultimately ineffective. So it's going to be a fascinating chess match with the Jets injuries and the Lions ascending talent.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see kind of how that plays out and if he can go or not over the next couple of days. We got to talk about another guy on defense who has been really, really terrific. I think he's the defensive rookie of the year. And look, Aiden Hutchinson has had a terrific start to this season, 7 sacks, a couple interceptions, He's been a real playmaker. But boy, Sauce Gardner, the number 4 overall pick, he has looked terrific. 6'3", 200 pounds. Connor, I was looking at some of the numbers from PFF. It was something like 44% completion percentage when throwing his way and a sub 50 passer rating when teams try to challenge him. Did anyone in New York expect him to be this good this early in his career?
No, and if they said that, they'd be lying. Even the guy that drafted him. No rookie corner comes in and does this. It's as simple as that. So when you look at Sauce, I mean, I always laugh at him. I had him as the number 1 corner in that class, and I didn't expect 80% of this. I mean, I'm blown away with what he's done. He's so good snap by snap, and you talk about those PFF numbers. I mean, they really, really jump out. Not just the 90.6 coverage grade, because I know some people don't always buy into the grades, but 44.1% completion percentage when targeted. He's got the 2 picks. He's 416 in completions. I think the 2 numbers that really are jarring to me is a 48.8 passer rating when targeted. And then you look at overall just the amount of yards he gives up per coverage snap, which is kind of hovered in the 0.55 area. That's a jarring number. You look at some of the better corners in the league, like Patrick Peterson, they're more in the 0.8 and plus. So snap by snap, he's been a great player. I think the Jets, and this is going to be the big thing that the Lions have to answer is, especially Jared Goff, they love to mix up their coverages. This is not your father's Robert Saleh cover 3 defense for 90% of the game. You're going to see quarters. You're going to see cover 1. You're going to get pressured. You're going to have to diagnose split field coverages. And the thing why the Jets are so effective in these areas is that Sauce is not just a man-to-man corner. He's a very talented zone corner. DJ Reed is the same way across from him. So the Jets corners have been maybe the backbone of the team besides Quinnen Williams up front.
Yeah, and really that front 7. I mean, you look at the 39 sacks by the Jets, 4th most in the league. They can really get after the quarterback, and we always talk all the time about what's good defense, right? When you can marriage the pass rush and the coverage behind it, and I think the Jets maybe do it better than anyone in the league. But Connor, this is really a strength on strength here, right? Because you look at Detroit's offense. I mean, top 7 in the league in passing, in total offense, in scoring, and then you look on the flip side, it's the same story for the Jets. So I'm curious, what have Jets defenders been saying this week at all? What's Robert Saleh been saying just about how talented Detroit's offense is and how explosive they've been, especially with now DJ Chark healthy, Jamison Williams, and that full complement of receivers, and arguably one of the top 2 offensive lines in football. Just what have they talked about the challenge for them this week?
I think the awareness of the offensive line they're dealing with, and I think that's where the Jets kind of understand everything starts in the trenches, and the Lions understand that as well. These teams have been on similar rebuild paths. The quarterback trajectory has been different, but everything else around them, they've had top picks. They've had coaching staffs that really took a beating year 1 without their full complement of players on their roster. And then they've had improvement in year 2, and they constantly point to winning in the trenches. And the Jets kind of have a mindset each week, but especially against a team like the Lions, is that you have to earn the right to rush the passer. There are teams that will test you with the run game over and over, especially if Quinnen's not on the field. And that's not to take away from the rest of the players on the Jets front, Carl Lawson, Sheldon Rankins, John Franklin Myers. But the bottom line is there are teams, especially if the weather's a little dicey, we know it'll be cold. You never know how the wind tunnel will be at MetLife. It's a weird variable that can affect the pass game and the kicking game. And teams are going to test you against the run. And if you don't shut down the run, they'll keep doing it. And I think that's an emphasis of the Jets coaching staff, is that you love the sack numbers. You love that they lead to Pro Bowls and accolades and highlights on Twitter and everything like that. But you don't get the opportunity to do that unless you're run responsible. So the Jets have to come out run responsible against a trio of running backs that will be involved in this game. And the fact is, when the Lions can get that run game going in any capacity, they have a play action threat now on the field in Jameson Williams, who we've only seen him sprinkled in, but we know he can do when he's ready to go, along with other talented pass catchers as well. Chark can win vertically. Amon-Ra St. Brown can win at all 3 levels of the field. So I think they understand going into this game that they have to put Goff in a pass situation, which is on the offense as well. The Jets need to come out and score points in this game and turn the Lions into a pass team, which we know the Lions are very good in that script, but it'll allow the Jets front 4 to pin their ears back, try to attack Goff, make the ball come out quicker, because if he has too much time back there, or they're a little unpredictable and they're more balanced run pass, that's going to make life a lot tougher for the guys on the back end, no matter how talented they are.
You know, Connor, you mentioned it before, just how similar the paths have been with these two franchises. I'm just curious what December's been like for Jets fans, because I know here in Detroit, I mean, Ford Field has been crazy. It's been since 2017. This team has played meaningful football games in the month of December. It's been a while for the Jets as well. Just how much have Jet fans enjoyed this kind of stretch run now here? Because I know here in Detroit, they've been just itching for a winner for so long that to finally be playing these meaningful games and have the playoffs in sight, it's been exciting here. Is there the same amount of excitement surrounding the Jets now too, and what fans view as maybe a really positive future moving forward?
Absolutely, because you guys know it, and these are two very loyal fan bases. Jets fans and Lions fans have hung around with some hard times, some tough, different, whether it's drafting, coaching, just losing. They've hung around, and the Jets have not hosted a December game like this, in really quite some time. That's what the difference here. And I think, Campbell and Saleh, when they get these jobs, you hear them at the podium, and it's easy to believe in them and buy into them and understand why players love them. But at the end of the day, the team has to win games at some point.
Results business, right?
It's a results business. And the Jets kind of came out of the gate. They lose at home against Baltimore. They look really bad for the first 3 quarters in Cleveland before a miracle win. And then when things start to turn around after the Bengals game, everyone's looking around and going, now the wins are here. Now Saleh's actions are matching his words. And the fans are showing up to the games expecting this team to fight hard for a playoff spot. And I do think they're a step ahead of where a lot of people expected them, maybe even themselves, as much as they would never admit that, because a lot of their impact players are 25 and under. Quinnen Williams turns 25 this month. DJ Reed's 25. Sauce Gardner's 22. I mean, this is a really, really young team all across the roster, and they are learning what these meaningful games are like, what the environment is like. So this is a huge test for them, but the fans are so excited about it because you can get right. Football is a weird business because as we sit here with the baseball offseason, you see guys signing 10-year contracts, and they're going to be there for the decade. Football, you have players that are there for a year, 2, 3 years, besides quarterbacks and franchise players. I think Jets fans feel an attachment to this core because they're on rookie and second-year contracts. They're going to be here for the next 3 years, and they just haven't had an identity of a franchise like that, maybe since 2010 when Rex Ryan was here.
It's so funny when you talk about that because it really is the same situation here in Detroit with some of the young core guys. Obviously Jared Goff's a little bit more of a veteran, but your Amon-Ra St. Browns, your DeAndre Swifts, right? Your Aiden Hutchinsons, Kirby Josephs on defenses, all young guys. And that's really been the precipice of Detroit's, turnaround this season from 1-6 to 6-7 has been the play of those of young guys. So look, it's two franchises that seem to be on a very similar path. And obviously they're on a crash course course, Sunday at MetLife Stadium. They both need a win to keep their playoff hopes alive. It should be a fun atmosphere. Connor Rogers, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Great insight on everything, and I'll make sure I stop by and say hello when I get to MetLife on Sunday.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me, and obviously good luck. And, these are two really fun teams to watch. So I think we're in for one hell of a game on Sunday.
I hope so. Thanks, Connor. Appreciate you. Welcome back to the Twentyman in the Huddle podcast, and I am very glad to be joined by quarterback Jared Goff. Jared, thanks for joining me as always. I've been wanting you on for a few weeks, and schedule-wise, I know you're such a busy man, but thanks for taking the time
of course,
this week. And
me.
Let's start with this. I know you did your media session yesterday, and you were asked about what the last 6 weeks have been like, and just a huge smile came onto your face, because what have the last 6 weeks been like, playing football at Ford Field and just playing some of your best football?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. It reminds you why you love playing the game and why you started playing the game, and you want to win, and everyone wants to win. And when you're able to do it with a group of guys like we have, and able to see the work pay off, there's nothing better. And that's what we're able to enjoy right now. Still got a lot of work to do and a lot of games, but we've been doing a good job up to this point.
And what about just in this city? I know you're a California kid, right? You grew up in California, went to California, played with the Rams, obviously. But when you came here, how long did it take you to realize that this is a football town? And if you were ever to get a winner in this city, just how fun that would be and to be a part of.
Right, yeah. I mean, pretty quickly I learned it once I was traded here. And I think I can feel, we're 6-7 and we've won 5 of the last 6, and it's exciting. But you can feel what it would possibly be like to be a 10-11 win team and to be playoff bound. And sure, we've got 4 games left and we could possibly do that. But that the feeling of that is so exciting and something that we want to give our fans and give them as soon as possible.
What's been the biggest difference for you guys offensively over the last 6 weeks that have really kind of turned this thing around? You guys have been good really all year offensively, but you've turned it into winning football the last 6 weeks. What in your mind, when you look at the totality of the last 6 weeks, has been the biggest difference you think for you guys?
I think we've found our identity a bit, both in the run game and the pass game, and we've certainly gotten guys healthy. That's helped and been a huge help on the outside. And then I think up front, those guys up front are playing so dang well right now. And we can kind of do a lot of things that a lot of teams can't because of that. We can put Panay in motion like you saw last week. We can pull Panay. We can move Decker around. We can do stuff with our center with Frank and Jonah and all these guys. We can do certain things that a lot of teams can't, and teams have to defend a lot right now with those guys' ability up front.
How much do you pinch yourself playing behind those guys? I mean, because arguably you've got 4 Pro Bowl caliber players up there, and Evan Brown is playing pretty good football as well too. When you watch games around the league, you maybe see some of the punishment some of these quarterbacks take. Do you just pinch yourself and be like, wow, this is pretty sweet that I get to do this every week?
It is pretty sweet, and I don't take it for granted, because I've been on the other side of it, and we've got a really good group right now, and I make sure those guys know how much I appreciate them, and that there are guys around the league who are getting hit quite a bit, and right now we're not one of them.
Okay, serious question then. The more important, the bigger Christmas gift this year, is it to your fiance Kristen, or is it to those guys along the offensive line? And how much time do you dedicate for the Christmas gift? I know it's an important thing.
I spent a lot of time on it this year.
Did you really?
I did. I won't spoil it. I'll probably give it to him next week. But for cost-wise, theirs is more expensive than Kristen's for sure.
Wow. Yeah. They're going to be pretty excited about it, huh?
They will. I hope so.
And let's talk about the wide receiver core, too, because I think that's a big part of this, too, Jared, is look, you guys had a lot of injuries early on. J-Mo was kind of working his way back. You had to patchwork some stuff. And, look, credit to guys like Khalif Raymond, right, and Amon-Ra for kind of keeping it all together, Kennedy, But now you've got DJ Chark back healthy. J-Mo's coming into the mix. So what does that allow you guys to do, or how does that affect the defense when you've got now your full complement of guys?
Yeah, well, certainly those 2 guys, DJ and Jameson, can stretch a defense, and we've shown that in the last couple of weeks with both of them. They can catch balls over the top, and teams are going to have to respect that now, and it will open everything else up and every other facet of our offense. But yeah, just getting everyone back healthy, it changes what you're able to do, and it allows guys to come in fresh. And you have 4 or 5 guys, you have a rotation now, and it's not like for a couple of weeks there we had TK, Saint, Cleef, and it was just those three.
60 snaps.
Yeah, and those guys get worn down, and Cleef's playing special teams, and TK's playing special teams, so it helps to have a full stable of guys that are complementary of each other.
All right, let's flip the script a little bit. Let's talk about the Jets, because when you look at this matchup, at least to me, it's strength on strength, right? Your offense against their defense. You just look at some of the numbers: 6th in points allowed, 3rd in total defense. They're 4th against the pass. They have the 4th most sacks, 39. I mean, it's a pretty good unit over there. What jumps out to you when you throw on the tape and started preparing for them?
Yeah, they're really good at every level. Their D-line starts there with them, and it always kind of has with Saleh. I think back to when I played them in San Francisco, and that D-line was always so good. Always so many first-rounders up there, and always so many guys that can get after the quarterback, and then they kind of build from there backwards. But C.J. Mosley's really good. Their secondary is really good. I played with LaMarcus Joyner in L.A. for a long time. He's a great player. The corner they got, Sauce, is a good player. DJ Reed, I think, is a really underrated corner I played against in San Francisco. So yeah, they've got guys at every level that have played for a long time and understand what it looks like, and they're a tough, formidable defense.
Coverage-wise, do they mix it up pretty well? Do they do one predominantly more than the other? Are they a zone or man, or they pretty much mix it up?
They do mix it up, and I think they keep it fairly simple, and it's kind of the way they've done it is pass rush, get home, and cover, and it is fairly simple, but it's very effective. It's very effective, and they do a good job with it.
I want to ask you about Amon-Ra St. Brown a little bit, because the man versus zone question is obviously when you play a team with a lot of zone, like that guy in the slot, right? That guy that can find those little areas, that crafty slot receiver. But when you play man, he's just as good in that too. Like, he can beat a guy one-on-one too. So what are the benefits of having a guy like that? It really doesn't matter what a defense throws at Amon-Ra. It seems like he can kind of match up well against that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, he's really good in zone, and then he's able to separate in man, and it's a rare combination for a guy. And I think he's come into his own this year, and everyone can kind of see what he's made of. And he's still getting better and still growing, and the sky's the limit for him. But yeah, he's a guy that I love throwing to, and gets himself open pretty well.
So you've been to MetLife. Maybe just what is that stadium like? What's that like? It sounds like 40 degrees, not so much weather, but can it get windy in there? A wind tunnel type
it was windy
deal?
last
What was
time
it
we
with
played.
the Giants? I know you played well in New York.
Yeah, it was very windy that game, and I think that took into account how we had to play that game. There was a little bit less throwing the ball down the field, a little bit more taking care of the ball, making them, hopefully make the mistakes that they did make, and playing good defense, and we did, and we won that game pretty handedly. But we'll see what it goes like this week. It looks fine right now, but we'll see.
4 rushing touchdowns in that game. How fun is that as a quarterback to just turn around and get it to those guys? And I mean, obviously you want to sling it around, and 330 and 3 touchdowns is great. FedEx Player of the Week through the air, but it's got to be nice too to just be able to turn around and hand the ball off to guys. It
is nice. I like just scoring points. At this point in my career, I feel comfortable with handing the ball off and scoring 4 touchdowns there, and I'm okay with that because I know I'll get mine at some point.
Yeah, you take a few less hits that way too.
There you go.
Jared?
Exactly. Yep.
All right. Before we close out, I want to ask about Ben Johnson, because obviously I think he's a big catalyst to kind of where you guys have gone offensively. And your relationship, we talked to him on Thursday, and he says it's as close as it's ever been. That you guys are just such in lockstep. Just what has he meant to you, and how important has he been to this offense's getting to this point?
Yeah, he's the catalyst. He's the guy who's driving the ship there offensively, and he means more to me than anything. I mean, it's been a lot of fun growing with him and getting to know him, and like he said, we are as close as we've been, and see the game very similarly now. And I think developing our identity, like I mentioned, over these past 6 weeks has kind of formed that and allowed us to really know what we're trying to attack and think similarly. So we're in a really good place, him and I, and continue to grow there.
Jared, it looks like you're having fun playing football.
I am.
I mean, it just looks like when I watch you, just the way you interact with the guys. I mean, the celebrations, the sideline, the stuff with Dan and Ben. You look like this is a fun time for you. Right
It is
now.
fun. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, it's been fun.
Well, it's a big game, obviously, on Sunday, and that's why you play the games, right? You're playing meaningful games in the month of December. Keep it rolling. You're playing some good football.
Thank you.
Guys got a good test, but thanks for joining me. I really appreciate
Thank you, man.
it.
I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
man.
Of course.
Welcome back to the Twentyman the Huddle podcast. It is now time for the BetMGM key matchups. And joining me this week is Michael O'Hara. Now, I couldn't, PJ's joined me the last couple weeks, but I couldn't have PJ on. PJ's from New York. PJ's a Jets fan. There would be a bias in this segment. And plus, I like talking with a Hall of Famer.
I'm only here because He's a homer? That's the
No,
only
not
time.
at all.
What an insult.
You are here because you are Michael O'Hara.
Well, I appreciate
Hall
that.
of Famer.
Listen,
And Mike, you know what we do. You've done this segment before. We basically talk about 5 key matchups. And let's start with this one. Quinnen Williams, they're really talented defensive tackle, versus Jonah Jackson and company. You know, it'll be Jonah Jackson. It could be Evan Brown and whoever else they rotate there at the right guard spot. But to me, that interior of the Detroit offensive line is really going to be tested with Quinnen.
absolutely. The issue for him is he going to play Sunday?
Yeah.
Look, he's got 11 sacks on the season. He got 2 of those in the first quarter and a half of their last game and went out with a calf injury and didn't come back. And to me, that's not a good sign.
No.
If you don't come back, to me that tells me that there's something wrong, especially as a team that's like the Detroit Lions fighting for a playoff spot.
Didn't practice Wednesday either. Robert Saleh said he's 50-50 at this point to play.
Well, it sounds hopeful to me because I listened, just like you did, I listened to their interview, and it didn't sound good. It really didn't.
It didn't.
But he's a tremendous player. You know, he's one of those guys he just looks so big, but he's 6'3", 303. That's not huge for inside lineman, but God, the way he plays, it's just an absolute terror. Drafted 3rd overall out of Alabama, of course. Where else, right?
Right.
But just a tremendous player. The Lions are better off without him playing. But look, Jonah Jackson, that offensive line has become this season everything everybody projected it to be, even with the injuries. Look, they've given up 2 sacks in the last 2 games combined. They can do almost anything they want offensively. They got room to maneuver. I think it's a tough. Let's just assume that Quinnen Williams is going to play. It's a tough battle, but it's one that the Lions are built to battle.
Yeah, his 11 sacks tied with Chris Jones for league lead. But if you look at just the pass rush reps, I mean, Chris Jones has had so many more than Quinnen Williams. So it's that impact, right? And any quarterback will tell you, and we've talked about this before, is that pressure up the middle is the worst for quarterbacks. I mean, it's the quickest way to the quarterback, and it just doesn't allow them to step up. And I think his pressure and the way he plays allows those guys on the edge to do what they do. I mean, they have 39 sacks as a team. That's 4th most in the NFL, but I think a lot of it is because of Quinnen Williams and that the quarterbacks can't step up because he's so productive in the middle.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, anytime that there's pressure in the quarterback's face, it really changes everything. It really does.
Among defensive tackles, Williams is 1st in sacks, pressure percentage, sack percentage. I mean, he is just really, really productive. But when you look at Jonah Jackson and Evan Brown, 0 sacks allowed all season between those two. The Lions hope they get Evan Brown back. I think that'd be a big boost for them.
Look, they've gone right down the list of backups at right guard.
They played every
year.
guard on the roster, I think.
And then some that we went out and got, for that week. Are you doing anything Sunday? But and look, it's a testimony to the players themselves and the coaching staff too. It really is.
100%. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Switch pages. Let's go. Their talented wide receiver Garrett Wilson, rookie draft pick this year, is having a terrific season. First, another guy who's having a terrific season for the Detroit Lions, Jeff Okudah, the cornerback, 3rd year. And Mike, it's really good to see Jeff, living up to the hype that was there when he was the number 3 overall pick. Now, look, he didn't select himself, right?
Right.
I mean, he had nothing to do with being the number 3 overall pick, but there's pressure that comes with that being a top 5 pick, and obviously he was derailed his first 2 years by injuries, but boy, he's been healthy this year, and he plays a physical brand of football. I think he brings something a little bit different to this defense when he's healthy and humming.
I would hesitate to stretch out and catch the ball with him in the area because he's out there to do some damage, and he does it. He really does. Even last week, he only played, I think, half the snaps or whatever it was because he had the flu or whatever it was, whatever was going around then. But boy, I bet you he'll come out this week and just heck on wheels. He really will.
And you look at Wilson. I mean, he's their guy at wide receiver. Over 100 targets, 63 catches, 868 yards, 4 touchdowns. But I think the big one to me is 3 receptions of 50-plus yards. That's tied for the most in the NFL. So, like when they need a big play, and this isn't a Jets team that offensively is one of the better teams. But so when they need that big play, when they get them, typically it's with Wilson. I think that's got to be the big thing with Jeff is just don't allow that big play.
No, I would agree with that.
Make them earn it.
And settle down this week, too. He got some early penalties in the game. In fact, the Lions had 5 penalties in the first quarter, and it seemed like he had all of them, but he really didn't. But just play the game. Let the game come to you. And that's what he's done all season. I think that was an abnormal normal performance for him last week. But just play the game, let it come to you, and he'll take care of it.
All right, let's go. Let's flip over and talk about Detroit wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's been terrific. I think he's one of the top 10 wide receivers in the NFL already in his second season, and he's going to be facing their nickel corner Michael Carter, who's been playing pretty well in his own right. He's got a couple interceptions. He's only allowed 1 touchdown all year, but when you look at St. Brown, 82 catches, Mike, 898 yards. He could go. He could get 1,000 yards this week, 6 touchdowns. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that you're a 100-catch, 1,000-yard, 10-touchdown guy over the next. If you can get a few more over the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think the 10 would be a stretch. The other 2, I can really see him get. And the thing about him, to me, is that the efficiency he plays with. If you throw him the ball, it doesn't hit the ground very often. He'll get, for example, he had a stretch 5 weeks ago. For those next 4 games, he had 41 targets, 37 catches. That just doesn't happen. It really doesn't. I know he's playing in the slot, and he's a little closer to the quarterback, and has you get more chances at sure catches. But that is production.
And I like that you mentioned the slot, because we talked about how good this team is, right? The 39 sacks being 4th, Quinnen Williams, that pressure up the middle. To me, when you play a team like the Jets, who are so good defensively, especially up front, can get after the quarterback. Who's a quarterback's best friend? That quick passing game, right? That slot guy is the closest guy to him. So, to me, this week, this is an Amon-Ra St. Brown type of game. You're going to want to get the ball out of Jared Goff's hands. It's going to be quick. Get some one-on-one matchups with Michael Carter, and you got to like St. Brown in that matchup. And so I could see him being targeted 10+ times this week, just because I bet the game plan is going to be to try to get the ball out of Jared's hands.
Well, there's the other thing too. He's got 7 career runs for 89 yards, so there's a lot of things he can do. And for those of you who follow all of this stuff, he blocks. He blocks downfield. He blocks at the line of scrimmage. This is just an all-around football player. When you refer to a guy as a ball player, that's an ultimate comment, and I think he's a ball player.
What a great pick by Brad Holmes.
Absolutely, 4th-round pick.
Wow, he's been good. All right, let's talk about a key one. I think in this one is look, head coach Robert Saleh, right? It's his defense that he brought over there. He's the defensive guy versus Ben Johnson, the Lions' offensive coordinator. And when you just look at the numbers, I mean, these teams offensively, Detroit, 5th best in points scored, 4th in total offense, 11th in rushing, and 7th in passing. But when you look at the Jets' defense, I mean, the numbers are almost similar across the board. 6th in points allowed, 3rd in total defense, 13th in rushing, and 4th best passing defense in the league. What a matchup against really strength on strength this week.
This is a glasses off moment. Young man, the statistic that means the most to me about Robert Saleh is this. They were 2-14 2 years ago, 4-13 last year. They've already won 7 games.
Yeah.
They're better off right now than they were the last 2 years combined. He's brought something to that team, to that franchise that they've been lacking. I think it's 11 years without a playoff berth. The fact that they're 7-6 and knocking on the door right now is a tribute to coaching.
I see PJ behind there lifting his arms about that. He's excited about Saleh and his Jets.
Well, he's easily excited.
but you can say the same thing about Dan Campbell, too,
absolutely.
Right? I mean, what he's done. And look, Ben Johnson, I think, has been a big part of that, too, with what he's brought over the last year and a half to this Lions offense. And the 39 sacks, which we talked about, but Detroit only 19 sacks allowed.
19 sacks,
so, again, strength on strength. That's the 3rd fewest in the NFL. And Robert Saleh was asked about Detroit on Wednesday in his press conference in New York, and what makes that offense so good. The first thing he said was that offensive line.
Yeah,
they are. He said Detroit and Philadelphia, you could argue, as the best offensive line in football. That's a pretty good compliment coming from a defensive guy like that. He said the Detroit's offensive line is playing so well that they're making Jared Goff look like he's playing 7-on-7, which I thought was a great line.
That's a great line, absolutely.
And they are. And so that's why this is such a key matchup to me, is what will Saleh dial up to counteract Detroit? Will he blitz? Will he just go with his guys and rush forward because they've been so productive? But he hasn't faced an offensive line probably as good as this one.
Oh, I'll bet you this. I bet you these two coaches, the coordinator and the head coach, love a game like this. I bet they're out there plotting. It's like playing your neighborhood bully or something like that. I gotcha.
Little chess match, huh?
Absolutely. Ben, one other thing, too, and I think it was forget exactly who said it, but they were talking about what they liked about what he did in last week's game creatively, and he said creative running plays. You don't hear that very often. You really do. It's usually the run, it's the flea flicker stuff like that, but the creative running attack was what really stood out.
Yeah, Ben Johnson's been great all year long. What will he have dialed up this week? This is probably the best defensive lines have faced.
I think his middle name should be Ben Franklin Johnson, for all the creative stuff he does.
All right, let's finish with this one, Mike, and it's their cornerback Sauce Gardner, the number 4 overall pick, who has been terrific. It probably isn't even a good word to say. I think he's the rookie of the year. I think Aiden Hutchinson's right there, kind of on his heels, but I think it's Sauce Gardner's to lose. Just with you could argue that he's the best corner in football. And he's a rookie. I mean, how many guys come into the league and you say they're already probably the best at their position? Not a lot of guys you can say that about. 6'3", 200-pound, physical. He shuts down the left side of the field.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. One thing about him, he's one of our own here, too. He's played at King High School in Detroit over on the east side, and also played wide receiver there too. Just a terrific athlete. Went down to Cincinnati and was one of those those core guys who got them into the championship tournament last year. So just he's been good at everything he's done and at every level he's done it. And it really, can you say it's no surprise? It's always a little surprise when somebody comes out of the chute the way he has. But boy, for a 4th pick overall, what a player.
And that matchup versus Jamison Williams. And you really use any of the Lions wide receivers because Sauce plays the left side. So I'm sure Ben will try to rotate, guys around, get matchups over against DJ Reed. But DJ Reed's pretty good on the other side as well. 6th best in coverage grade by Pro Football Focus is DJ Reed on the other side. So, it's a really good matchup. But when you got Jamison Williams against Sauce Gardner, I think that'll be a terrific matchup just because of J-Mo's speed. And, we started to see him, play a little bit more last week. Obviously had the 41-yard touchdown on kind of a busted coverage, but I think fans got a chance to see the speed. And it's rare speed that
really
he's
is.
got. It's a different kind of speed too. It's he's a little bit longer. He's a long strider. It doesn't look like he's running hard when he is, and so I mean it's something Sauce will have to get accustomed to. But just throwing at Gardner this year, 44.1 completion percentage. They've thrown at him 59 times. They've completed 26 of them, Mike. That's it. And he's a rookie. They have a 48.8 passer rating when opposing teams try to throw at Sauce Gardner. I mean, he's been terrific.
Well, just put a guy over there. You don't care if he catches the ball, and let everybody else on the other side.
And that's why when we talked about Michael Carter and Amon-Ra St. Brown earlier, I think because Sauce is so good at taking away the team's guy, whoever lines up over there on that left side, he's so good, and he doesn't really travel. With the opponent's number 1 guy, he plays that left side, so you can scheme it a little bit and try to get some guys away from him, but when you got somebody lined up over there, they're not going to see the football very often. And so we'll see if J-Mo can maybe, get on top of them, can make that big play if they're ever matched up against us. I think that'd be a fun matchup to watch.
Yeah, and the great thing about this matchup we're talking about, it's one of those, it's right out there. You can see it. It's not like different blocking schemes and all that. They're not readily discernible by the mere mortals like myself. But watch it, the passing game and all that, some of that stuff. It's fun because you can see it. It really is. It develops before your own eyes.
Well, it's a big one for both teams.
Absolutely.
Lions 6 and 7. They think they got to win out to get a shot in the NFC. The Jets are 7 and 6. They've got a tough schedule remaining. So this is a big one for both these teams on Sunday.
Well, Robert Salah said these last 4 games are the start of the playoffs, and so we'll call it the Final Four. 2
teams in playoff mode in December. Should be fun in New York. That's the BetMGM key matchup segment. Thank you guys for joining me. Obviously, PJ, Clark, and I will be in New York having a podcast after the game and what we hope is a Lions victory.